Picture a building 9 stories tall, built by men who have never heard of a building inspector, out of materials chosen by a landlord who will never, not once, set foot inside it. Now fill it with 200 people. Add walls made of river mud and hope, stairs so steep they qualify as a cliff, a single water source 3 streets away, and a crack running up the back wall that everyone has agreed, by unspoken vote, not to look at. That's an insula, a Roman apartment block. The word means island, and that's what it is. An island of humanity stacked vertically, floor upon floor upon floor, in the most crowded city the world has ever seen. Rome in the year 79 holds close to 1 million people inside a space you could walk across in an hour and a half, and almost none of them own the room they sleep in. Almost all of them rent. Rome is the city of marble temples and golden statues, of aqueducts that carry rivers through the sky, of an emperor's palace so vast it has its own lake, and it is also the city where you can pay a month's wages for a room where the rain comes through the roof and the floor tilts noticeably toward the street, and be grateful, genuinely grateful, because the alternative is sleeping under a bridge over the Tiber with the men who have stopped being people in the eyes of everyone who passes them. We're going back there tonight, not as tourists gaping at the Forum, we're living it. One day, one person, one rented room at the top of a dying building. Everything he would have seen, smelled, heard, paid for, and survived. So, I make these history stories, and honestly, I still don't know if anyone actually sleeps to them, or if you're all just lying in your comfortable beds, in your buildings with fire codes, quietly savouring the fact that your ceiling has never once dropped plaster into your mouth while you slept. Either way, subscribe if you want. Get comfortable. Notice just for a second how solid your walls are. Here we go. 2 sesterces. You're 2 sesterces short and the rent is due today. You've counted the coins 4 times now, sitting on the edge of your mattress in the dark, and the number refuses to change. 38 sesterces in a leather pouch worn soft as skin, and the rent on this room, with its one window the size of a loaf of bread and its ceiling you can touch without straightening your arm, is 40 sesterces for the quarter, due on the Kalends, which is today. The coins are cold. You've been holding them long enough that they should have warmed, but bronze holds the night in it, and the night up here on the 5th floor is always colder than the street. You stack them in the dark by feel. The fat dupondi, the thin worn asses, the 2 silver denarii you've been guarding since the Saturnalia like they were your own children. You know each coin by its edges now. This one is clipped. This one has the old emperor on it, Nero, whose name nobody says out loud anymore but whose face still buys bread. This one is so smooth the face is gone entirely. Just a ghost of a man, passed hand to hand for 80 years until Rome wore him away. 38, not 40. Somewhere below you, 4 floors down, in a set of rooms with actual glass in the windows and a bronze lock on the door, sleeps the man who will climb these stairs today with a wax tablet and a stylus and a face like a closed shutter. His name is Chrestus. He is a slave. He is also, functionally, the most powerful man in your life, because Chrestus collects the rents for this building on behalf of a landlord you've never seen and never will. Some senator or knight who owns this insula and 11 others, who knows this building only as a line in an account book, a number that must go up. Chrestus does not negotiate. Chrestus does not extend. You have watched from the stairwell what happens to tenants who come up short. It happened to the rope maker on the 3rd floor in the winter. 2 men came with Chrestus. Not soldiers, nothing official, just two men with forearms like ship timbers. And by noon the ropemaker's entire life was sitting in the street. His stool, his blankets, his wife's loom weights, scattered across the paving stones like knuckle bones. The law was on the landlord's side. The law is always on the landlord's side. A tenant who can't pay forfeits everything he's brought into the room. That's the rule, old as the Republic. They call it the landlord's pledge. Your furniture is his hostage the moment you carry it up the stairs. The ropemaker stood in the street while the crowd stepped around his belongings, and he didn't shout, didn't weep. He just kept picking things up and putting them down again, as if the right arrangement of objects might turn back into a home. You are not going to be the ropemaker. You get up. The mattress crackles under you. Straw, stuffed into a linen sack, flattened by now into something closer to a rumour of a mattress. Your hips know every board of the bed frame beneath it. The floor is cold under your bare feet and it flexes. It always flexes. The boards up here are thin because everything up here is thin. The higher you go in an insula, the cheaper the construction gets, the lighter, the more provisional, until the top floors are barely more than wicker and plaster and prayer. The rich logic of Rome runs upside down inside these buildings. Everywhere else in the world, height is glory. Here the ground floor is for shops and for the one wealthy tenant who rents a whole apartment with running water piped in. The first floor up is respectable, the second is tolerable, and then, floor by floor, the rooms shrink and the ceilings drop and the rents fall and the people multiply until you reach the top of the building where the poorest tenants live pressed under the roof tiles like pigeons. Closest to heaven, the joke goes. So the gods can collect them without the bother of stairs. You're on the 5th floor, not the worst. There is a 6th, half height, reached by a ladder, where a family of 7 lives in a space you could not lie down straight in. You hear them through your ceiling every night, the shuffle, the coughing, the baby. Your name is Quintus Ollius. You are 19 years old. You came to Rome 2 years ago from a farm in the Sabine Hills near Riat. 4 days' walk northeast, because the farm could feed 4 sons and your father had 5. You arrived with a spare tunic, a bronze knife that had been your grandfather's, a letter from a neighbour to a cousin who turned out to have died the year before, and 11 sesterces. Everyone back home said Rome would swallow you. They said it the way people say things they hope will be contradicted. They weren't wrong. They just didn't understand what swallowing looks like. It isn't a monster's gulp. It's this. A room 8 feet by 10, a rent that eats half of everything you earn, and a coin count that comes up too short on the morning of the Kalends. Listen. The building is waking up around you. You can hear it through the walls because the walls stop nothing. A wall in a cheap insula is a lattice of wooden strips packed with rubble and mud skinned with plaster. It holds back sight, and that's all it holds back. Through the wall to your left, the scrape of a whetstone, slow and patient. That's Felix, the knife grinder, who sharpens his stock every morning before he carries it down to the street. And the sound of stone on steel is the sound you have woken to for 2 years, so regular you could pour water by it. Through the wall to your right, coughing, deep, wet, tearing coughing, going on and on. That's the widow Antonia, who weaves in her room by the light of her one window, and who has been coughing since December, and whom you bring water sometimes because her knees can no longer manage 5 flights, and whom the building has quietly begun to speak of in the past tense. From below, up through the flexing floor, a door slamming, a child shrieking with either joy or fury. At that age the two are the same sound. A man's voice cursing the child, a woman's voice cursing the man. The Cerdo family, 4th floor, 6 people in 2 rooms. From further below, muffled to a rumble. The shopkeepers on the ground floor opening their shutters, the wooden panels clattering out of their grooves and stacking against the walls, one after another, the daily drum roll of commerce. And threading through all of it, from outside, from everywhere, the sound that never fully stops in this city, the sound that is Rome, the way waves are the sea, voices, thousands of them, 1,000,000 people waking within a mile of your bed, and the smell. You barely notice it anymore, and that fact, when you do notice it, disturbs you more than the smell itself. Its layers. Wood smoke first, always wood smoke. 100,000 cooking braziers and bakery ovens lighting at dawn, laying a grey ceiling over the city that the sun will spend all morning trying to burn through. Under that, the sharp ammonia bite drifting up from the fuller's jars at the street corner. You'll get to those. You know those jars personally. Under that, the fatty smell of frying from the cook shop across the street, chickpeas and old oil, which would be appetizing if it ever stopped, but it never stops. So it has become simply air. Under that, the latrine smell, the gutter smell, the smell of a city where 1,000,000 bodies produce what 1,000,000 bodies produce, and most of it travels by gravity, by gutter, by the grace of the next rainstorm. And under everything, the bass note, the one you carry with you, the smell of yourself and your blanket and your unwashed tunic, the smell of a body that works 12 hours a day and washes at a public fountain in cold water. Welcome to Rome. The first day of a month in the summer of the year 79. The second year, everyone is still remembering to say, of the Emperor Titus's reign being imminent, because old Vespasian died just weeks ago, in June, out at his Sabine estates not far from where you grew up. Died like the man he was, on his feet, or trying to be, muttering that an emperor ought to die standing. Now his son Titus has the empire, and down in the valley between the Calian and Esquiline hills, the father's great gift to the city, the amphitheatre, the enormous one, the one they've been building your entire time in Rome, stands nearly finished, so vast that the first time you saw it, you stopped walking, and a man behind you cursed and shoved you, and you didn't even feel it. But the amphitheatre is not your problem this morning. Your problem is 2 sesterces, and the man who will come up the stairs for them. You dress standing up because there is no room to dress any other way. Tunic, the older one, the work one, grey-brown with an honesty of stains that no fuller could redeem, which is a professional judgment because you work for a fuller. Belt knotted twice. The pouch with the 38 sesterces goes inside the tunic against your skin on a cord around your neck, because a pouch on a belt in a Roman street is not a pouch. It's a donation. Sandals last. Sitting on the edge of the bed, working the stiff leather straps between your fingers, feeling the crack starting near the left heel that will, within a month, become a repair you can't afford either. Your room, in full, the bed, a stool, a chest, small, holding the spare tunic, the winter cloak, your grandfather's knife, and a clay lamp you ration oil to like a miser, a water jug, 2/3 empty, a chamber pot 1/3 full, which is your first errand, a wooden peg in the wall, a window unglazed, glasses for the ground floor, closed with a wooden shutter that turns the room to pitch darkness, or open to the weather. Those are the choices. On the wall by the door, scratched into the plaster by some tenant before you, a crude drawing of a gladiator and the words Victor Vincus. Victor, may you win. You've often wondered whether Victor won, whether the man who scratched it paid his rent, where he went. There's a fresh crack in the plaster above the window, thin as a hair, running up from the corner. You noticed it 3 days ago. You've decided it's nothing. Everyone in this building is very practiced at deciding cracks are nothing, because the alternative is deciding to live somewhere else, and there is nowhere else. Rome's rents climb every year like ivy. The city is a machine for taking money from people who have almost none and delivering it to people who have almost all of it. And the machine's most reliable gear is this: everyone needs to sleep somewhere. Chamber pot in hand, you open your door carefully, because the door opens outward into a corridor 2 shoulder widths wide, and braining a neighbour before breakfast is a bad start to rent day. The corridor is dark. Corridors in an insula are always dark. A window is a luxury spent on rooms, not passages. You navigate by feel and memory, past the widow's door where the coughing pauses. She's heard your step, she knows everyone's step, and her voice comes through the wood, papery. Quintus, is it the Kalends? It's the Kalends, Antonia. A silence with arithmetic in it. Everyone on this floor is doing the same arithmetic this morning. May Fortuna hold her hands over this whole miserable island, she says at last, which is what she says instead of admitting anything, and the coughing resumes, and you go on toward the stairs. The stairs. Let me tell you about the stairs, because the stairs are the spine of your life, and they're trying to kill you. 5 flights, each one steeper than any staircase you will ever meet in the modern world, because every foot of horizontal space in this building is rentable, and stairs pay no rent. The steps are wooden, worn into shallow scoops by decades of feet, and the 3rd step down from the 5th floor is loose, has been loose since before you moved in, and every tenant in the building knows to skip it, stepping long over it in the dark with the unthinking grace of habit, the way you'd step over a sleeping dog. There is no railing. There is a rope once, in places. In the black of night, drunk men die on stairs like these all over Rome. It is one of the city's quiet, steady harvests, less famous than fire and collapse, but more regular, like the interest on a loan. Down you go, pot held level, shoulder brushing the wall. Past the 4th floor where the Cerdo family's noise resolves into words. The man wants to know where his other sandal is. The woman wants to know where his wages went, and both questions appear to be rhetorical. Past the 3rd where the rope maker used to live and where a new family already lives, because a room in Rome is never empty longer than it takes to sweep it. Past the 2nd, where the doors are farther apart because the rooms behind them are larger, and the smells change subtly. Someone down here can afford better oil. Past the 1st, where the building's one prosperous tenant, a marble dealer named Sabinus, has an actual apartment, 6 rooms and a slave and a bronze knocker in the shape of a dolphin, and where the plaster in the stairwell is painted to imitate stone panelling, red and yellow, because the 1st floor is where the building still bothers to lie about itself, and out, past the shops, into the street. The light hits you like a shout. Then the noise arrives properly, no longer filtered through walls. Full Rome, at full volume, at the hour when the whole city empties itself into the streets at once, because everyone in Rome does everything early. The sun barely clears the rooftops, and already the street is a solid, moving mass of people and burdens. Rome bans wheeled carts during daylight hours, which sounds like mercy until you understand what replaces them. Everything a cart would carry, carried instead on human backs and human heads, amphorae and firewood bundles and baskets of fish and doors and dead pigs, and once, Memorably, an entire dismantled bed frame, moving down the street atop 4 porters like a boat with legs. Your street is called the Vicus Sandaliarius, Sandalmaker's Street, in the Subura's fringe, the great valley slum northeast of the Forum, the neighbourhood every rich man mentions with a shudder, and half of them secretly visit after dark. The street is maybe 12 feet wide. The buildings on either side rise 5, 6, 7 stories, leaning subtly toward each other overhead like conspirators, so that the sky is a bright ribbon, and the street itself lives in a permanent cool shadow that would be pleasant if it weren't also damp, and the dampness weren't also in part what people throw out of windows. Which brings us to your pot. There is a right way to do this and a wrong way. The wrong way cost a fine. The law is genuinely serious about this. A man hit by falling filth can sue everyone who lives above the offending window. And, worse than the fine, it costs you the goodwill of the street, and the street's goodwill is the only insurance a man like you carries. The right way is the vat. Down at the corner, outside the fullery where you work, stand the great ceramic jars, waist-high, wide-mouthed, and every man in the neighbourhood is invited, encouraged, to contribute, because human urine is not waste to a fuller, it is a raw material. It is ammonia, and ammonia cuts grease, and cutting grease out of wool is the entire business of your life. The fullers of Rome run on the bladders of Rome. There was even a tax on the trade. The Emperor Vespasian himself put a levy on the urine business, and when his son Titus wrinkled his nose at the source of the money, the old man held a coin under the boy's nose and asked whether it smelled. It didn't. Money never does. Pecunia non olet. The whole city knows that story, and the whole city has spent 10 years happily telling it at the fuller's expense, and you have heard every joke there is, and you can confirm the coin doesn't smell. Everything else does. So you carry your pot down the street like a man carrying his rent, carefully, and you tip it into the corner jar with a splash you have long since stopped hearing, and you nod to old Thallus, who is already there, leaning on the wall by the jars, because Thallus is always already there. Thallus is 60 or 80, freed slave, former something. The story changes, and he serves the fullery as watchman, jar guardian, and unstoppable commentator. Kalends, Thallus says, the way another man might say plague. Kalends, you agree. You short? There is no privacy in this street. There is no privacy in this city. Privacy is a villa on the Esquiline with a garden wall. Down here, everyone's business travels faster than smell. 2 sesterces, you say, because lying to Thallus is like lying to the pavement. He sucks his remaining teeth. Crestus comes at midday, comes to the shops first, works upward. You've got the morning. He says it like a sentence handed down. Then, squinting at you sideways, the master's got a mountain of wool in since yesterday. Senator's household, togas, the fine white, rush work. A pause, letting it land. Rush work means the master's in a mood. A mood can go 2 ways. You understand him. Everyone in Rome speaks this language. The language of maybe an advance, maybe a beating for asking, and the whole day balanced on which. You look up the street toward the fullery entrance, where steam is already rising past the doorway into the shadowed air, and your stomach does its own arithmetic, coins and hours and the master's temper, and comes up, as it always does, uncertain. But first, before the master, before the wool, before anything, water. The jug in your room is nearly empty. The widow's certainly is, and a day in the fullery with nothing to drink is a day that ends with you fainting into a vat, and men have done exactly that, and the jokes afterward are the least of what they suffered. The fountain is 3 streets away, and 3 streets in the Subura is a journey. You go with the jug on your shoulder, joining the current of bodies. Understand what a Roman street is at this hour. There is no sidewalk here. Some streets have stepping stones and raised margins. Yours has a gutter down the middle and ambition. You share the space with everyone and everything. Porters bent under grain sacks, their necks ropey, their eyes fixed 10 feet ahead in the middle distance stare at men pacing themselves through pain. A litter carried by 4 matched slaves, curtains drawn, some sleek someone inside floating through the crowd at the height of your head, the lead bearer calling out, "Way, way," in a flat ritual bark, schoolboys being dragged to a master who holds class in a doorway, a barber shaving a customer against a wall, razor flashing an inch from the jugular while the crowd jostles past his elbow. Roman barbers are famous for 2 things: gossip and scars. A woman selling snails from a basket, calling the same 4 words on the same 3 notes she will sing 10,000 times before dark. 2 dogs negotiating over something you don't examine, and underfoot, always, the children, the street children, quick as rats, whom you watch the way everyone watches them, with one hand drifting toward whatever you own. The noise is total. Everyone sells by shouting, and everyone shouts because everyone else is shouting. An arms race with no ceiling. Copper pans banged as advertisement. A sausage seller's brazier hissing. Somewhere a flute. Badly. Hammering. Everywhere hammering. This whole city is perpetually rebuilding itself. Tearing down, throwing up, patching, propping. Rome eats buildings and excretes buildings. The crane and the scaffold are as native to its skyline as the temple pediment. And through it all the hum, the voice hum, the sound of 1,000,000 people talking at once, which you no longer hear, which you would only hear if it stopped, and it will never stop. The fountain, when you reach it, has a line. The fountain always has a line. It's a fine thing, this fountain, a stone basin fed by a bronze spout shaped like a lion's mouth, and the water that falls from it has travelled 40 miles to get here through the Aqua Claudia, riding stone arches across the whole Campagna, dropping foot by careful foot the entire way, engineered by men a generation dead so precisely that it arrives at this lion's mouth in the Subura with pressure to spare. Rome's aqueducts move more water in a day than some rivers. The rich pipe it into their houses, paying for the privilege, or stealing it with the legal taps that the water commissioner's men hunt like poachers' snares. The poor line up at the Lion. The line this morning, 9 people ahead of you. 2 slaves with yokes and paired buckets, doing this trip for the 10th time already. A grandmother, a girl of maybe 8 with a jug half her size, whom the grandmother, unrelated, automatically helps hoist when her turn comes, because that is the law of the fountain line, deeper than any praetor's edict. The talk in the line is Kalends talk, all up and down. Who's short, who's flitting, moving out by night, midnight flitting before the collector comes, a whole clandestine genre of Roman life, families and their bundles slipping down stairwells in the dark hours, leaving an empty room and an unpaid quarter behind them. There's a name for the day it happens most, the day the rents come due. There are poets who joke that you can track the Kalends by the furniture moving through the streets at dawn. They flitted, the ones above us, a woman ahead of you is saying. Whole family gone before the watch changed. Left the bedstead. He'll take the bedstead for the debt and rent the room again by nones, and mark me, he'll raise it. He'll raise it. The chorus of the city, of somebody, somewhere above all of you, above the Subura, above the smoke, owns these islands you live on, and the arithmetic that governs your life is being done in a garden on a hill by a man in white, or more likely by his accountant, a slave cleverer than his owner, moving beads on a counting board. The great and good of Rome pretend to find rental income vulgar and collect it through middlemen precisely so they can keep pretending. Cicero himself, a century back, owned crumbling tenements and joked in a letter that even the mice had moved out, and in the same breath discussed rebuilding them to squeeze the plots harder. Nothing has changed since except the height of the buildings. The buildings got taller. The law had to step in and cap them, 70 feet under Augustus, because they kept falling down, and builders have treated 70 feet as a target ever since, and built to it as cheaply as human ingenuity allows. Your turn at the lion. The water hits the jug with a drumming that climbs in pitch as it fills, and you drink first straight from the spout deep, the water stone cold and tasting faintly of the miles, of lime and distance. Genuinely the best thing in your day, most days, this free cold gift from dead engineers. And then you fill the jug to its shoulders, hoist it to yours, and carry 40 pounds of water back through the crowd, up the street, in the door, and up 5 flights of stairs. Watch your feet. Skip the 3rd step. 40 pounds on your shoulder and your calves burning by the 3rd floor, and your breath loud by the 4th. And this is before work. This is the chore before the day. You do this every day, and on the days you don't, you drink less and stink more. You pour half into your own jug and knock at Antonia's door with the rest. She takes an age to open. In the wedge of window light, her face is the colour of the plaster, and the hand on the doorframe is mostly bone, but her eyes still do their quick, full inventory of you. The eyes are the last thing to weaken on women like her. They see everything until they close. You'll want paying, she rasps ritually. You paid me last month with the cheese. That cheese was rancid. I ate it anyway. Something that used to be a laugh happens in her chest and turns into coughing and turns into a long minute of you standing there holding the water and being helpless, which is its own kind of work. When it passes, she waves you off with the back of her hand, but she says, as you turn, quietly, to your shoulders, in the tone of a woman spending the last of something, "You're a decent boy, Quintus. This city will fix that if you let it." Down again. 5 flights. Skip the step. Now, the foolery. Now you go to work, and you work with your 2 sesterces problem hanging over you like the buildings hang over the street. The Phalonica of Gaius Fulvius Rufus occupies the ground floor of the insula's corner, a wide room open to the street, and behind it a courtyard, and the whole of it announced from 50 feet away by its smell, which is the smell of your trade and your life. Wet wool, sulphur, and urine, in proportions that vary by the hour, but never, ever, in 2 years, by enough. You have stopped smelling it in any conscious way. You know this because new customers wince at the threshold, and you watch them wince the way a sailor watches a landsman grip the rail. Fulvius is exactly where Thales predicted, in exactly the mood, standing in the courtyard amid a snowdrift of white wool, a delivery of togas that covers every rack and rail, hands on his hips, chin down, like a general surveying a battle already half lost. He is a wide, short man, freedman, arms like a stevedore's from 30 years of doing what you now do, with a boxer's flattened nose and incongruously the most delicate hands in the neighbourhood. Hands that can read a fleece blind, that can find the one weak thread in a toga's yardage with 2 fingers, that have taught your hands roughly half of what they know. He looks up at you the way he looks up at everyone. You're late. You're not late. He says this every morning. In 2 years you have learned that the correct response is to be already moving. So you are already moving. Tunic off, hung on the peg inside the door, because you work in a loincloth. Everyone does. Wool work is wet work, and down into your stall. Understand the machine you are part of. A fullonica is where Rome's clothes come to be cleaned and finished, and Rome's clothes are wool, and wool arrives filthy, soaked with lanolin, sweat, street grime, oil, wine, and the ambitions of whoever wore it. Soap, as you'd know it, does not exist here. What exists is chemistry. The trade is known for centuries without ever calling it that. Alkali cuts grease, and the cheapest alkali in the world is aged urine. Fermented, weeks old, the ammonia sharp enough now to make your eyes water at the pore. Along the courtyard's edge runs a row of waist-high basins, each set in its own little walled stall, and each stall holds a tub of water and urine and fuller's earth, a fine clay that drinks grease out of fibre. And into each tub goes cloth, and onto each mass of cloth goes a man. You climb in, both feet. The liquid is cold at this hour, cold enough to shock the breath shorter, and the cloth shifts and bulks under your soles like something alive. You grip the low walls of the stall, one hand on each, and you begin to tread. Lift, press, twist, shift. Lift, press, twist, shift. They call it the fuller's dance, saltus fullonicus, and from the street it might even look like dancing. A row of men in a row of stalls stamping in rhythm, sometimes actually singing, because work this repetitive begs for a song and the fullers have filthy ones. From inside the stall is this, your full weight driven through the ball of your foot into sodden wool, over and over, the ammonia climbing into your sinuses and finding every crack in your winter-chapped feet. The small, stinging map of every cut you forgot you had, your calves taking up their long, dull burn, and the liquid slapping the basin walls in time. Thock, 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 while the grease of some senators' dinner parties clouds grey out of white wool and into the water around your ankles. Your hands work too, down to haul the cloth over, folding the mass, finding the fouled patches by feel. Grease is slick under the fingers, even underwater, a subtle wrongness in the fibre, and scrubbing them knuckle to knuckle. 2 years of this and your hands have become tools, palms padded hard, nails cut to nothing, the skin white and swollen by the second hour, the creases picked out in grey no fountain ever fully rinses. Fuller's hands. You can spot a colleague across a tavern by them. You have started this past year to have the dreams where your fingers ache, and to wake and find that the ache came with you. Around you the shop clatters into its full noise, fulvious bellowing quantities, the slap of wet cloth on stone, the creak of the great screw press in the corner, where finished togas are squeezed flat and smooth between boards, the beam groaning as 2 men lean on the bar. The snip of the cropper's shears, there's an art at the end of this trade. Cloth is brushed with thistle heads to raise the nap, then sheared smooth, and the shearman, a silent Gaul named Vindex, does it freehand with shears as long as your forearm, and has not in living memory drawn blood from a toga. And beneath everything, the hiss of the sulphur room, the little domed cage where whitened togas hang over a pot of burning sulphur to be bleached blinding, and which everyone takes turns tending, and after which everyone coughs for an hour, and about which nobody says the obvious thing, which is that the men who tend it oldest cough longest. This is your trade. It is low. You know exactly how low. Fullers stand in Rome's imagination somewhere between honest labour and standing joke. The men who stamp in piss all day, and playwrights have gotten laughs off you for 300 years. It is also indispensable, and everyone knows that too. A Roman is his toga, that blinding white on the steps of the law courts, that woolen dignity draped over every magistrate and mourner and bridegroom. None of it exists without a man in a stall treading. The togas of the great pass through the hands of the small. You have trodden the wool of senators, in a sense that no one involved wishes to examine. Half the Senate has been under your feet. Mid-morning, the sun has finally cleared the roofline and drops a hot blade of light across half the courtyard. Your stall has been emptied and refilled twice. Your feet have gone from numb to burning to a distant tingling that you know from experience is worse than pain. And you have been rehearsing the sentence for an hour, folding and refolding it like cloth. Master, the rent falls due today, and I'm short 2 sesterces against my week's wages. If you could advance... You never get to say it. What happens instead begins as a sound. A wrong sound from outside, from streets away. A crack, deep, like the earth clearing its throat, and then a rumble that you feel through the liquid in your basin before you hear it properly. The surface of the water shivering into rings round your ankles. Every head in the fullery comes up at once. The treading stops. The press stops. For one held breath the shop is silent, and in that silence the rumble becomes a roar, and the roar becomes the loudest thing you have ever heard. A tearing, thundering avalanche of a sound, seconds long, with something under it like hail, which your mind refuses to identify and later cannot stop identifying. The sound of 10,000 roof tiles arriving in the street together. Then the screaming starts, thin and far, and the dust comes round the corner like weather. Somebody says it. Flat. Before anyone can hope otherwise, because every Roman knows this sound the way farmers know hail. Insulas come down. Everyone runs. That's the thing you'll remember afterward when you try to describe it. Nobody ran away. The whole street ran toward it. This is a city where a building falling is a fire alarm and a summons at once, because under that rubble are neighbours, and above that rubble, if fire catches in the broken braziers and spilled lamps, is everyone. You're out of your stall and into the street barefoot before thought catches up with your legs, loincloth soaked, feet slapping stone, and you run with the crowd 2 streets over into the dust. The dust reaches you before the sight does. It rolls up the street chest high, pale, gritty, tasting of lime and old plaster and something scorched, and you breathe it and cough it and push through it. And then the street opens into the little square by the shrine of the crossroads, and there it is. Or rather, there it isn't. The insula that stood on the north side of the square, the tall narrow one, 6 floors, with the copper beater's shop on the ground floor and the balcony on the second where a woman kept caged birds, it has become a hill of itself. A steaming, groaning slope of rubble 2 stories high where 6 stories were, timber ends jutting out of it like snapped bones, an entire section of stairway lying across the top of the heap, absurdly intact, going nowhere. The buildings on either side stand naked-walled. their plaster ripped away in the shape of their fallen neighbour, and on one exposed wall, 4 floors up, hangs somebody's shelf still bearing its row of pots, perfectly level over a void. The dust settles slowly, like snow with nowhere to be, and out of the crowd's roar single sounds separate themselves. A man calling one name, over and over, in a voice that goes up half a tone each time, and from inside the hill, from under it, knocking. You've heard old men talk about this. Everyone in Rome has heard old men talk about this, because this is Rome's own disease, its native disaster. This satirist put it in verse. Who fears collapsing houses out in cul praeneste? Nobody. We live in a city held up by props. You've walked past the props your whole life here. The great timber shores angled against leaning walls, half the streets of the Subura colonnaded with crutches, and everyone ducks under them and nobody looks up because looking up changes nothing. The builders build to the 70-foot limit with rubble concrete and river sand mortar, and timber framing that a strong man could dent, because the landlord's arithmetic runs one way. The building must return its cost, and every year it stands past that is profit, and if it falls, the land is worth more than the building anyway, and the plot rebuilds, and the rents go up. Crassus, the richest Roman who ever lived, built the first great fortune of this city on exactly this. He kept teams of builder slaves, and when a building burned or fell, he'd arrive with the smoke still rising and buy the plot, and the terrified plots beside it, for almost nothing, from owners still shaking. They say at one time he owned most of Rome. The fire brigade he kept was famous for negotiating the purchase price while the building burned. That was 150 years ago. The men have changed, the arithmetic hasn't. What happens in the square in the next hour you are part of, and it will live in your hand's memory for years. The bucket lines forming without anyone commanding them, the vigiles arriving at a run, the night watch, Rome's fire brigade, 7 cohorts of them for the whole city, freedmen with axes and ropes and grappling hooks and a bronze water pump that is genuinely clever and pitifully small. The chain of men, you among them, passing basket after basket of rubble hand to hand, your fuller's palms for once grateful for their callous, the broken concrete gnawing everyone else's fingers raw. The moment they bring a boy out of a pocket under the fallen staircase, grey as a statue, dust caking his eyelashes, and he coughs, and the whole square makes a sound you have never heard a crowd make. And the other moments, more of them, when what they bring out gets covered before it's carried. The copper beater is saved because he was in his shop doorway, and the doorway held. Doorways hold. That's another thing old men say, and now you know it forever. The bird woman from the 2nd floor is not. Her birds are. The cage rode the collapse down and sits on the rubble in the sun, dented, screeching, alive, and no one can bear to either free them or look at them. And at the edge of the square, before the last baskets are passed, the other Rome arrives. A man in a clean tunic with a wax tablet and 2 assistants, picking their way around the crowd's edge, counting something. Nobody has to tell you what. The plot, the frontages, the neighbours' walls, now cracked, now suspect, now cheap. Somewhere on a hill this afternoon over lunch, this hole in your neighbourhood will change hands. You walk back to the fullery grey from hair to heel, hands bleeding in 3 places, and it is somewhere on that short walk, with the knocking sound still in your ears, with the level shelf and its pots hanging in your mind's eye above nothing, that you remember, distantly like news about a stranger. 2 sesterces, Crestus, midday. Midday has come and gone. Fulvius is standing in the fullery entrance. He watches you come, and his flattened face does something rare, something between a wince and a nod, and he jerks his head inward. Get in. Then, as you pass him, which one was it? The corner house by the crossroad shrine, the 6 floors. The one with the birds. He says it flatly and spits into the gutter, and looks for a moment down the street toward the dust still hanging over the roof line. And whatever he's thinking about buildings, about landlords, about the odds that govern every man who sleeps above the 1st floor in this city, he does not say it. What he says is, Crestus came. Your stomach drops out of you like a trapdoor opening. Came, collected the shops, went up his list. Fulvius lets it sit exactly long enough. I paid your 2 sesterces. You stand there, grey as the boy from the rubble, and fail to produce a word. Don't. He's already turned back into the shop, already bellowing at Vindex about a shear line, and the rest arrives over his shoulder, in the tone he uses for delivery schedules. It comes out of your wages, obols and all, and if you're short again next Kalends, I'll let him have your stool and your blanket, and I'll shake his hand while he takes them. Now get in your stall. The senator's wool doesn't tread itself. You get in your stall. The liquid has gone lukewarm in the sun. Your feet find the cloth. Lift, press, twist, shift. And for a while, treading, with your hands stinging in the ammonia everywhere, the rubble opened them. You let yourself feel the whole of it at once. The fear, the reprieve, the debt, the boy who coughed, the covered shapes, the shelf over the void. And the rhythm takes it the way the rhythm takes everything. Thock, 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 and the grey clouds out of the white. And the day, unbelievably, simply continues, because that is the most Roman thing of all. The day continues. By late afternoon, the senators' togas hang in ranks in the courtyard sun, white as gulls, and Fulvius walks the lines with 2 fingers, reading each one, and finds fault with 4, and pretends to find fault with a 5th just to keep the shop honest. The light goes long and gold. The street sounds shift registers. The seller's cries thinning. The tavern sounds thickening. The first carts beginning to queue outside the gates for their nighttime run. Because remember, wheels are banned by day, which means every cart in Latium enters Rome after dark. Which means night in this city is not quiet, has never once been quiet. Is a grinding, cracking, bellowing procession of axles and drovers' whips and oxen from dusk to dawn. The poet's complaint is that sleep in Rome cost money. The rich buy silence with distance and garden walls, and the poor learn to sleep inside the thunder. Fulvius pays out the week at the last hour, coin by coin into each palm from the shop's iron box. And when he comes to you, he counts your wage, then visibly, ceremonially, takes back 2 sesterces and drops them into the box and looks at you with the look that is his entire philosophy of the world. Nothing is free. Everything is survivable. Get up earlier. Feast day soon, he says unexpectedly, as you turn to the peg for your tunic. The new amphitheatre. Next year, they say, the games to open it will run 100 days. He works his jaw as if chewing the number. 100 days of games. And you know what stands in the middle of all the seats? He doesn't wait. Awnings, sailcloth, rigging crews from the fleet at Misenum to work them, and under the awnings, 80,000 Romans in their whitest wool. The flattened face achieves its version of a smile, which is mostly a narrowing. Somebody has to wash this city, boy. There are worse trades to owe 2 sesterces to. You climb your 5 flights in the blue evening, skip the step, and you eat standing at the window shutter. Bread from the morning, gone leathery, drag through the last of a pot of chickpeas from the cook shop. a strip of dried cheese, a cup of wine so watered it is a memory of wine. Your feet are white and swollen and cracked at the heels, and you rub them with a knuckle of lard kept for exactly this, working it into the splits, hissing. The widow coughs through the wall. The knife grinder's stone has gone quiet. A woman's voice murmurs in his room, and his voice murmurs back, and whoever she is. The wall keeps their words and gives you only the tune of them, low and unhurried, two people talking the day down. Across the street, in the amber slot between shutters, lamplight. Below, the first cart of the night comes up the vicus with a sound like the sky being dragged, and the whole building hums with it faintly, plaster and bone. You look at the crack above your window for a long moment. It has not grown. You decide again that it is nothing, and you notice yourself deciding, and you understand in a tired flash you'll have forgotten by morning that this is the actual rent you pay, not the 40 sesterces, the deciding. Every tenant in every island in this city deciding nightly that the crack is nothing, because the city gives them the crack or the bridge, and the crack has a roof. You lie down. The straw crackles. The building talks around you. Steps, coughs, a laugh. The baby upstairs. The carts, the carts, the carts. And this is where we'll rest a moment, just a moment, before the night brings what the night brings. The night in Rome is a country of its own, with its own citizens, its own laws, its own weather. And tonight you are going to travel through it, because the day is not finished with you yet. It starts with the carts. You are almost asleep, in that grey shallows where the day's pictures replay themselves without your permission. The shelf over the void. The boy's dusted eyelashes, when the first ox train comes up the Vicus Sandaliarius fully loaded, and the building receives it the way a drum receives a fist. The iron-shod wheels find every joint in the paving stones, and every joint answers, crack, 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 a slow bone-deep percussion that climbs the walls and crosses the floorboards and enters the frame of your bed. The drover's voice comes with it, hoarse, professionally obscene, addressed to oxen who have heard it all before. Then the next cart, then two together, and a wagon of dressed stone for some building site, groaning like the stone resents being moved, and behind them a marble hauler with a block the size of a bread oven, and the men who walk beside it carrying torches, so that the light strokes across your ceiling through the shutter. Cracks, slow gold bars travelling the plaster, left to right, all night, every night. This is the law's doing, and it is a good law, and it is ruining your life. Caesar banned daytime wheels 120 years ago, because the streets couldn't hold both the carts and the people. So the people got the day and the carts got the night, and sleep got nothing. The rich fixed it the way the rich fix everything, with distance. Their houses turn blank walls to the street and wrap themselves around silent gardens. Some of them, it's said, sleep in inner rooms on beds whose feet stand in cups of sand and hear nothing but their own fountains. Down here, the street runs through your skull. You have learned in 2 years the trick every poor Roman learns, which is not to sleep through the noise. Nobody sleeps through it, but to sleep inside it, to let the grinding become a tide, to stop asking it to end. Tonight the trick won't take. Your feet throb in time with your heart. Your scraped hands have stiffened into claws around the blanket edge, and your mind, given darkness and stillness, does what minds do. It counts. 38 sesterces earned back into 40 owed. 2 to Fulvius, the sandal strap. oil for the lamp, the widow's cough, which is not your debt and which you count anyway, and under the counting quieter the other ledger, the one the collapse opened. How old is this building? Who owns it? When did anyone last look at the joists under this floor? Whether the crack... No, you've decided. It's nothing. Somewhere before the middle of the night you surface completely, mouth dry, and lie listening. The carts have thinned to one every few minutes. In the gaps between them you can hear the rest of the night city going about its business. The watchman of the district crying the hour somewhere streets away, more yawn than cry. A burst of tavern singing cut off by a door. Cats, a woman laughing on a balcony, once low, and far off, so faint you might be inventing it, the bells the vigiles carry. Tan, 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 moving somewhere after something. In Rome you hear that sound the way sailors hear wind change. Every man in every insula lifts his head an inch off the pillow when the fire bells move, and holds still, and reads the distance, and puts his head back down only when the sound goes away from him. It goes away from you. You sleep. Morning is the whetstone through the wall, and the ache arriving a half-second after waking, punctual as a creditor. Feet, calves, hands, the small of your back. You lie one moment in the grey and take the inventory a working body takes. What still bends? What has to be argued with? And then you get up, because the alternative to getting up has never once been offered. But this next day is different, and I'll tell you why. It's the day before the nuns, and Fulvius, in the manner of masters everywhere, has discovered religion exactly insofar as it flatters his schedule. The senator's togas went home yesterday. The next great load comes tomorrow. Therefore the shop works only the morning, and the afternoon is yours. A free half-day in Rome, with a paid week minus 2 sesterces around your neck. There is a whole science to spending it, and you have been a poor man long enough to hold a doctorate. The morning first, though. The morning is rinse work, and rinse work is the gentlest thing the foolery does to you, which is not the same as gentle. The treated cloth has to come out of the ammonia and pass through clean water, basin after basin, each one clearer, and it's hauling work. Sodden wool weighs treble. A senator's toga, 12 feet of drenched cloth, comes out of the water like a drowned man and fights you the whole way, and you wring it in stages, 2 men twisting from opposite ends, the rope of cloth tightening between you, water sheeting out over your forearms, cold at first and then just wet, your shoulders finding the particular deep ache that belongs to twisting and to nothing else. Then the racks, the brushing, the thistle combs raising the nap with a sound like a cat's tongue. Big, slow strokes, your arm from shoulder to wrist, one long repetition. And the whole time, Thallus in the doorway, guarding jars that need no guarding, providing the shop's education. Thallus on landlords. You know what an island is, boy? An island is a thing the sea eats slowly. They name these buildings better than they knew. On the collapse, 6 floors, built under Nero after the fire, quick as dice. Everything built after the fire went up quick as dice. This whole quarter is a wager, and the landlords bet with your bones. On your debt. A man who owes his master 2 sesterces is a man whose master has spent 2 sesterces to keep him. Cheapest loyalty in Rome. He'd have paid 5. And on Rome itself, squinting down the bright chaos of the Vicus, with the tone of a man reciting scripture he half believes. There's no city like her. There's never been a city like her. She'll kill you without noticing, and she'd be insulted if you took it personally. At midday, Fulvius pays the water and bathhouse coin. A quadran's a man, the smallest coin there is. His one standing generosity, and don't think the shop doesn't understand it. A fuller who bathes is an advertisement and turns you all loose. And now the afternoon. Now you get the other Rome, the one they build the poems about, and you get it the way the poor get everything. Publicly, gloriously, and standing up. First, food. Your kind of Rome doesn't cook. Understand this. It isn't a preference. Most rooms above the second floor have no hearth, and the landlords like it that way. A brazier in every room is a torch in every room. And even so, half the city keeps one, and that fact should tell you what the other option is worth. So the poor eat out every meal, and the city is built for it. Every corner has its pepina, its cook shop, a masonry counter right on the street with round mouth cut into it, jars sunk to their necks holding the day's offering warm, a shelf of cups, a wall painting of Mercury or a fighting cock, and a proprietor who knows 400 people's usuals. Yours is the corner shop of Salvia, a Syrian freedwoman with forearms a fuller would respect, and today, flush with wages, you order like a senator. The chickpea stew with actual visible pork in it, a hunk of bread still warm enough to fog the air when torn, and recklessness, a small smoked fish, and a cup of the second best wine watered honest. You eat it at the counter, elbow to elbow with a mule driver and a temple sweeper, in the noise, in the smell of frying and hot stone, and the salt and the fat land in your body like news of a victory. Total damage, less than an as and a half. The rich, reclining tonight over dormice and flamingo tongues, will spend on one course what your street eats in a year, and, this is the part that would genuinely puzzle them, will not enjoy it more. Then, the baths. There are hundreds of bathhouses in this city, from imperial palaces of bathing down to neighbourhood establishments the size of a large house, and your quadrans opens the door to one of the latter, the Baths of Fortunatus, 2 streets toward the Viminal, and I want you to walk through what that smallest of coins buys a man who stamps in urine for a living. The changing room first, loud, wet-floored, lined with niches for your clothes and staffed by an attendant you tip with a glance of complicity. Clothes. Theft at the baths is one of Rome's great petty industries. There are curse tablets all over the empire calling down gods on tunic thieves. And you keep your coin cord around your neck, always. Everyone does. The poor bathe wearing their money. Then the warm room, where the heat begins, rising through the floor itself. The floor stands on little brick pillars, and furnace air moves beneath it, so the marble is hot underfoot, hot enough that men wear wooden sandals, and the first touch of it on your ruined feet is a shock that converts, within 3 breaths, into something close to weeping gratitude. Then the hot room proper, where the air is thick enough to drink, where the light falls from a round eye in the dome through steam in one solid tilted column, where men of every kind sit sweating in a fog of voices. And this is the thing about the baths, the true thing. For 1 hour, Rome's terrible arithmetic suspends itself. There are senators' freedmen in here, and porters, and a poet declaiming to anyone who can't escape, and 2 old men playing Latruncoli on a scratched board, and everyone is equally naked, equally boiled, equally red. It is the most democratic hour this city offers, and it cost 1/4 of an ace, and the emperors keep it that way on purpose because they know exactly what they're buying. You sweat until the week runs out of you. You scrape down with a borrowed strigil, the bronze edge peeling off oil and grime and dead skin in grey ribbons. a sensation somewhere between grooming and harvesting, and a bathman with hands like your master's wrings your shoulders and cracks your spine in 3 places for a copper, and then the cold plunge, which no one enters gracefully, which you enter the way everyone enters it, with a gasp torn out of the root of you, and surface blazing, skin singing, alive from scalp to cracked heels, briefly, entirely clean. A fuller, clean Thallus would have a remark. You walk out into the late afternoon with your blood moving like the aqueducts, and because the day is bought and paid for and the light is good, you do the thing you save for days like this. You walk up a hill, the Aventine, at the day's golden end. It's the plebeian hill, the old stronghold of the commons, though money has been climbing it for a century, and the top now belongs mostly to fine houses and old temples. But the climb is free, the streets are open, and there's a spot you found in your first summer. A bend where the road crests between a temple precinct and somebody's garden wall, where the ground drops away north, and the whole city lays itself out below you like a thing that can finally, from up here, be seen. Rome, from above, in the last hour of light. The Tiber first, curling at the hill's foot, bronze in the low sun, barges still moving on it, the island with its temple riding midstream like a ship, then the roofs, and this is what no one tells you before you climb. The roofs go on beyond sense, a sea of terracotta running to the horizon in every direction, ridged and jumbled and steaming faintly with the evening's 100,000 fires, and out of that sea the famous city stands up like reefs. The capital close on your left with the great temple of Jupiter catching fire in the sunset, gilt roof tiles burning gold on gold, the long spine of the Palatine, the Emperor's Hill, one continuous palace now, a mountain-wearing architecture, the Forum Valley between them, columns and gilded statues and the crowded gods, and beyond, on the far side of the bowl, rising out of the ordinary roofs with the improbability of a whale surfacing in a pond, the new amphitheatre, travertine still pale, still webbed with scaffolding at its crown, arches on arches on arches, 80 of them around at every level, a building with more doorways than your entire neighbourhood has rooms. Next summer, they say, 100 days of games, 50,000 seats, some say more, and a mile north of it, the thin needle of smoke rising from somewhere in the Subura. That is somebody's supper or somebody's disaster, and from up here you honestly cannot tell, and that too is Rome. And here is what happens to you on the hill, the thing that happens every time, the reason you climb. The city sorts itself. Down inside it, Rome is a fist around you. The walls lean in, the crowd carries you, the noise erases you. From up here it becomes what it actually is, which is not a fist but a hive, a machine of 1,000,000 parts, and you can see the parts. The water striding in from the east on its arches, 3 aqueducts riding one another's shoulders, the grain fleet's barges below, the smoke of the bakeries, the white specks of togas crossing the forum, each one of which it occurs to you with an odd interior jolt. Somebody washed, somebody trod. Down there, invisible from here, are your basins, your street, your 5 flights, your crack above the window. From here they are one terracotta ripple among 100,000, and you can't decide, watching the light go copper and then rose across all of it, whether that thought is crushing or comforting. And then you understand, 19 years old, feet cracked, 2 sesterces in debt, alone on a hill above the capital of the world, that it is both, that it has always been both, that this is the entire secret of living here. The sun goes into the janiculum across the river. The city lights itself, lamp by lamp, window by window, until the dark valley below you is scattered with 10,000 small fires, every one of them a family, every one of them a risk, every one of them somebody deciding tonight that the crack is nothing. You walk down in the dusk and you buy a honey cake from the last vendor on the hill road because the day is that kind of day, and you climb your 5 flights, skip the step, and you sleep this once like the dead, carts and all. And now the weeks turn. Let them turn. This is what a summer is. In a rented room in Rome, it is heat first. Heat that gets into the masonry by July and stays, so that the building gives its warmth back all night like a banked oven. And the top floors, your floors, cook worst. And the whole population of the upper insula migrates after dark to windows, to stairwells, to rooftops where the tiles will hold you, and the city develops its summer voice, the murmur of 1,000,000 people sitting in the dark being too hot together. It is thirst. The fountain lines lengthen. The lion's mouth runs a little thinner in the dry months, and no one likes what that implies about the springs 40 miles away. It is smell, doubled and tripled, the gutters candid under the sun, the fish market announcing itself from 3 streets, the foolery in August an experience even you register. It is the Kalends, arriving with the moon, every moon. You make rent in July with 4 sesterces to spare, in August with 1, because the sandal strap finally dies and takes its brother with it. And each time, Crestus's stylus ticks your name on the wax with the sound of a small door closing for 1 more month. And it is the widow. Antonia dies in the first week of August, in the afternoon, in the heat, at her loom, not even in bed. She was working, the shuttle was in her hand, and it is you who finds her, because it is you who notices by evening that the coughing has stopped, and stands in the corridor understanding what the silence is before you allow yourself to understand it. What happens next is the poor man's funeral, and you are in it, and you should know how it goes, because this is the part of Rome the marble never mentions. There is no family. There was a son once, in the army, in Syria maybe. The letters stopped. But there is the other thing, the thing the poor build because they must, the burial club. Antonia paid her copper a month for 30 years into the funeral society of the vicar Sandaliarius. Half the street belongs. You belong. Fulvius signed you up your first month with the words, "Die owing no one," and the club does what the club is for. 2 members wash her and wrap her. The club's beer comes down from the clubhouse loft. There are torches. There is a flute player, hired, ancient, missing notes. There are 11 mourners, which is not nothing, which is honestly a good turnout for a widow weaver, and you carry a corner of the beer out the Esquiline gate in the dark to the burial grounds, and her urn goes into the club's columbarium, a neat wall of small arched niches like a dovecote, like an insula for the dead. And don't think the resemblance escapes anyone. The poor of Rome live stacked and are buried stacked. And the niche, I will tell you plainly, is drier and better built than her room was. Her room rents again in 9 days. A leather worker, young with a wife. The loom went to the club to cover costs. The wall between you, which for 2 years carried her cough to you like a message, now carries a stranger's hammer taps, small and regular, tap, 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 and it takes you a full month to stop hearing the cough underneath them anyway. You inherit her water jug. You find, wedged behind where the loom stood, a copper as of the old Republic, black with age, and you keep it on the windowsill, and you could not say why. August ends, and in the last week of it, Rome hears the mountain. Not hears. Rome is 120 miles from Vesuvius. Nothing is heard. What Rome gets first is the sky. A strangeness in the south, remarked on the street. A brown-grey smear low on the horizon like weather that doesn't move, and a sunset 2 days running the colour of a wound, gorgeous and wrong, that the whole city comes out to look at and nobody can praise. Then Rome gets the riders. Then Rome gets the rumour, which arrives the way rumour arrives, in 6 versions before noon. The mountain above the bay has burst. The mountain, and half the city says which mountain, because Vesuvius was a green hill with vineyards up its flanks. Nobody living thought of it as a thing that could open. Campania is burning, the rumour says. Ash is falling on ships at sea. Pompeii is buried. No. Damaged. No. Gone. Herculaneum is gone. The admiral of the fleet at Misenum is dead. This one, weeks later, proves true. He took ships toward the burning shore to pull people off the beaches and died there on the sand. An old, fat, famous man who had written 37 books about the world and went to look at the world one last time when it did something new. You stand in the street with everyone else in the strange stained evening light, among the porters and the barbers and Salvia wiping her hands on her apron, all faces turned south, and you listen to men who have never been south of the city walls explain volcanoes to each other. And through the fear, refugees will come, grain prices will move. The gods are being discussed on every corner with sudden fluency. Through all of it, you feel the thing you're almost ashamed of, the thing every renter in every insula in Rome feels that week, and no one says aloud. Those were towns of houses. Solid ones, low ones, good ones, the kind of homes the whole Subura dreams of with gardens and their own water. And the earth ate them in a day. There is no floor of the world, is the lesson the sky is teaching, that cannot open. The rich buy distance from the carts, distance from the smells, distance from the collapses. Nobody, it turns out, has yet arranged distance from the ground itself. The emperor, Titus, 2 months on the throne and handed a drowned coastline for a welcome, empties his own purse and the estates of the airless dead into the relief, and the city, watching, decides tentatively to love him. The refugees do come that autumn. You see them in the grain lines and the porticos, campanians with good sandals and stunned eyes, people who owned things, learning the fountain queue, learning the insular stairs, learning your life from the top, and you catch yourself showing a Pompeian mason which step to skip, and hear yourself saying it. 3rd one down. It's been loose for years, you get used to it. In the accents of a native, in the easy voice of a man explaining his city. When did that happen? Autumn then. The rains return and find every flaw in every roof in Rome. Yours produces a leak in the corner that the landlord's agent notified agrees to consider, and considers all the way to November, and you fix it yourself in the end with a tile scavenged from. You don't examine where the tile came from. The collapse site by the crossroad shrine grew a scaffold in September and lost it in October, and is a plot of raw walls now, climbing fast, and they say the new building will have 7 floors where 6 fell, and the frontage shops are let already, and there it is, the whole city in one corner lot. Rome eats a building, Rome grows a bigger one, the rent goes up, the line moves. Your 3rd winter comes. You know winters now. You know that the water jug freezes and you break the skin of ice with your knuckle, that the fuller is liquid, steam like cauldrons at dawn, and treading is almost briefly pleasant, until you have to climb out wet into the cold, that chilblains open the backs of your fingers, and you tread with your hands in your armpits between halls, that the brazier cellars get rich and the vigils get busy, because winter is fire season. Every room in the city with a pan of coals in it. Every family huddled close around the one thing that is forbidden and universal and warm. You know all of this. You are, by now, hard to surprise. The fire comes anyway. It comes in February on a night with a north wind, and it does not start in your building. That's the first thing to understand about fire in this city. It doesn't have to be your carelessness, your lamp, your brazier. You can do everything right for 3 years and be undone in an hour by a stranger you've never met, 4 doors down, falling asleep over a flame. The building stands shoulder to shoulder. The party walls are lath and rubble. The floors and stairs and balconies and roof frames are timber, old timber, dry as biscuit. And the alleys between the blocks where the law demands a gap have been quietly built over and bridged and roofed by generations of landlords stealing air. The Subura is one connected pile of fuel with people living in it. Everyone knows this. It is the third thing everyone has decided is nothing after the cracks and the leaning walls, because a man cannot lie down at night inside a fact like that and also sleep. You wake because the light is wrong, not the noise. The noise at first folds into the carts. What drags you up out of sleep is the shutter seams glowing orange when they should be black, and the orange moving, breathing. And then the noise arrives properly and refuses to be carts. A roar with a crackle riding on it, and under that the sound you will never afterward describe to anyone though you try. The human sound of a street understanding, window by window, what is happening to it. And then, close, deafening, the bells, the vigiles bells, tan, 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 not moving away this time, not going anywhere else here, and fists on doors down the corridor, and Felix the knife grinder's voice, cracked wide open, shouting the one word that empties buildings in this city faster than any god's name. You're up and moving before you're fully a person. And here is where the animal that lives inside your training saves your life, because the animal has rehearsed this without telling you. Tunic, snatched not donned. The coin cord, already on your neck, always on your neck. Your grandfather's knife off the chest in one motion. And the blanket, the animal knows about the blanket, plunged into the water jug, sopping over your head and shoulders. 4 seconds, maybe 5. You do not take the spare tunic. You do not take the lamp. You look in the doorway, 1 heartbeat long, at the room. 8 feet by 10, the scratched gladiator, Victor Vincus, the black copper coin on the sill, the whole visible sum of 2 years. And the animal turns you and shoves you into the corridor. The corridor is smoke. Not full, a ceiling of it, waist-height clear below, hot and sour with burnt hair and pitch, and you drop under it and go, hands on the boards, past doors that are open, past the leather worker and his wife already ahead of you, down the stairs into the crowding dark. And the stairs, the terrible stairs, the killers, save the building this once because everyone on them knows them blind. Down through smoke by pure body memory, 5 flights, feet finding the scoops, the whole insula pouring down its one wooden throat around you, and a voice below, Sabinus the marble dealer of all men, bull-bellowing at the door like a drill instructor, 1 at a time, 3rd step, 1 at a time, and hands passing children over heads, and the 3rd step down from the 5th floor holds. It holds. 40 people cross it on faith in the dark, and then you are out. The street is noon bright and full of hell. It is not your building. That registers first. Absurd, guilty, glorious, not yours. It is the block across and up. 3 doors on the wind side. Already gone past saving. A torch 6 stories tall. flame standing off the roofline taller than the building itself, leaning with the wind, spitting whole burning laths into the air that actually sail, gorgeous and lethal, over the street. The heat crosses the distance like a wall. At 50 feet it dries your eyes. The air over the whole street is a blizzard of orange flakes, and where they land they are being hunted. That's the fight. You see it immediately. The burning building is lost and everyone knows it, and the war is for the wind side, for the roofs downwind, for your side. And the street fights. This is the thing. This is what I want you to see. The vigiles are here. 2 squads already, more coming at the run, helmets and axes and their siphon engine. The bronze pump worked by 4 men on rocker arms throwing a stream 2 stories high, pathetic and magnificent. But the vigiles are hundreds of men in a city of 1 million, and everyone knows the real fire brigade of Rome is Rome. The bucket chains are forming out of the crowd the way they formed at the collapse, self-assembling, fountain to fire, and you are in one before you decide to be, wedged between salvia and a stranger, and the buckets start coming. You will be in that line 4 hours. Let me give you the 4 hours honestly, because your body will keep them forever. The bucket arriving from the right, rope handle, the slosh weight of it wrenching your shoulder the first 50 times, and then becoming simply what arms are for. The pivot, the pass, the empty, coming back the other lane. Water down your front, freezing in the wind while your face cooks in the glare. The vigil's hooks, the fire hooks, great iron claws on poles and chains, teams of men and 1 mule dragging at the burning block's walls, because the oldest fire tactic in Rome is the honest one. Demolition. Pull it down. Drop the fuel into its own footprint before the wind can shop it down the street. The long shrieking lean of a wall coming, the scatter, the ground shock through your souls, the sparks going up in a column like a second city rising. A vigiles with his eyebrows gone drinking from a past bucket and handing it back into the line to be thrown at the fire and nobody laughing. And it being somehow, forever, the funniest thing you've ever seen. The moment near dawn when the wind, the whole night balanced on the wind, backs off 2 points to the east, and every soul in the street feels it change on their wet necks at the same instant, and the fire leans away from your block like a beast losing interest, and a sound goes up out of 300 filthy people that is not a cheer, is nothing so simple as a cheer, is the sound of a street being told it exists tomorrow. Your building does not burn. The block that burned loses its whole heart. 3 insulae down to smoking mounds by full daylight, the vigils still hooking and soaking the wreck, steam and smoke braided together over 100 yards of ruin. The count, when the count is finally known, is 9 dead. Most of them top floor, most of them at the wind end where it started, where a wine cellar's widow kept. Everyone knows within a day, the street knows everything. A charcoal brazier by her bed against the February cold. The same brazier as everyone, the same cold as everyone, the same nothing that everyone has decided nightly forever, and hers was the night it wasn't nothing. You help where helping is wanted for most of the day, and you eat at Salvia's counter without tasting, and at some point Fulvius appears beside you, grey to the knees himself. The fullery's water stores went into the buckets by his own order. First thing, all of it, and the shop's biggest basin spent the night as the bucket line's reservoir. And he looks at the steaming ruin up the street for a while, jaw working. 3rd one I've seen take a whole block, he says at last. 59 years in this city. A silence. You know what the Great Fire was? Under Nero. I was your age. 9 days. 3 districts of 14 gone to the ground, 7 more chewed, This whole quarter, everything you can see, everything you live in, grew back out of that in one generation. He spits ritually, accurately. They passed laws after. Wider streets, height limits, stone party walls, porticos for firefighting, every house to keep water ready. Good laws, boy. Written in ash, everyone. He turns and looks at you, and the flattened face is as close to open as you have ever seen it. And every year since, a little more timber, a little more height, a little bridge over a little alley, a little rent on top of the rent. The law forgets. The landlord remembers only arithmetic. He claps your shoulder once hard, turns for the shop, and delivers over his shoulder the closest thing to tenderness the man owns. You stink of smoke. Wash. I know a place. And the days go on, because the days go on. That is the deepest thing this city ever teaches you. Deeper than the stairs and the coins and the wind. The morning after the worst night, the fountain line forms. The shutters come down. The whetstone starts through the wall. Rome's answer to ruin is the following day, delivered on schedule without comment forever. But something has changed in you, and you notice it that same spring, on an evening in April, counting coins on your bed. A familiar posture, an old scene, except the count is different now. Rent set aside first, whole, untouchable. You have not been short since that first Kalends. The fear did what fear does, and made a system. Then the burial club copper, then the living, and then, this is the new part, this is the change, the pot. A clay pot in the chest under the winter cloak into which, since September, has gone every sesterce that survives the month. There are 41 in it tonight. You know exactly. You always know exactly. Because you have done a new arithmetic, and it is this. A fuller's assistant earns his bread and no more forever. But Vindex the shearman is slowing. You've watched the great shears hesitate this past year at the turns, and cropping is skilled work, paid work, guild work. And Fulvius has watched you watch, and in March, without preamble, took your right hand in his two terrible delicate ones, turned it over like a fleece, and grunted, and since then, in the slack hours, the shears have been in your hands over sacking, and seconds and your own patched tunic, learning the long stroke, the wrist lock, the listen, because you shear by sound as much as sight. The blades tell you the nap, and your forearm has developed one specific new ache in one specific new muscle, and you've caught yourself, twice, proud of a pain. That's the ladder, in your Rome. Not up and out. Up and out is for stories. Just up one rung. Tread to shears. Shears to a wage worth the name. A wage worth the name to, say it, in the dark, to the ceiling. Why not? A room on the second floor some day. A floor that doesn't flex. A window with a shutter that meets its frame. Maybe, at the far end of the ladder, decades off, blurred with distance, a name over a door. Foolery of Quintus Ollius. Stranger things stand in this street. Fulvius were born a slave. The pot doesn't know any of this. The pot just gets heavier, coin by coin, month by month, with a small blind patience of clay, and some nights, before sleep, you put your hand into the chest and lift it, just to feel the weight tell you the time. Then, in November of that third year, the letter comes. Not to you. Nothing comes to you. Men like you receive news the way roofs receive rain, from above and without warning. It comes to the building in the person of Crestus on a day that is not the Kalends, which is itself the warning. Crestus off schedule is Crestus with something worse than collection in his satchel. He does it floor by floor, door by door, and you hear it climbing toward you all evening like weather, The knock, the murmur, the silence, the second murmur, the door closing, the pause on the landing while the stylus scratches. And by the time the knock reaches your door, you already know from the shape of the sounds below what is in the wax, because the fourth floor has been swearing for an hour. Crestus in your doorway, lamp in hand. He is a neat man, small, grey at the temples, with the stillness of someone who has delivered 10,000 pieces of bad news and survived every recipient. He does not come in. He never comes in. He reads it off the tablet in a voice sounded free of anything a man could grip. By instruction of the owner, from the Kalends of January the rent of this room rises from 40 sesterces the quarter to 46. 6 sesterces. 15% if you knew the word, which you don't. What you know is the shape of it, which is half a month's food, which is the whole pot's growth of a season, which is your ladder losing a rung in one sentence spoken by a slave holding wax. Why, you say? You know it's useless. Everyone asks anyway. It is one of the small ceremonies of the poor. Crestus's shoulders perform the smallest movement in his repertoire. The fire, he says, which unpacks itself as you stand there. 3 insulae burned in February. 300 tenants poured into a rental market with no rooms to spare. Every landlord in the quarter watched the poor bid against the poorer for what was left. And the owner of your building, a man on a hill whose name you finally learned this year by accident from Thallus, a senator's widow's estate actually, managed by her freedman, which means your roof is a lien in the account book of a dead man's money. The owner has observed through the instrument of the market that desperation has raised what desperation will pay. The building did not improve. The step is still loose. The crack above your window is still nothing. Only the number moved. The fire didn't touch this building, you say. No, Crestus agrees mildly, already turning, already lifting his knuckle toward Felix's door. It touched the price. And here is the moment I want you to stand inside, because this is the truest room in the whole story. You, in your doorway, 19 years' worth of Sabine pride climbing your throat, with 3 responses lined up behind your teeth. 1. Refuse and be the rope maker, your stool in the street by the Ides. 2. Flit. Join the midnight furniture, vanish only a quarter, start again in some other leaning tower 2 streets over at the same new price. Because the price is everywhere now. The fire raised every roof in the quarter. There is no other side of this river. 3. The thing you actually do. You say, understood. That's it. That's the whole scene. Crestus nods, ticks, moves on. The door closes, and you stand in your 8x10 with your ears hot, understanding something that Aventine View never taught you. The collapse and the fire were spectacles, were disasters with smoke and noise and neighbours pulling you out of lines to safety. This, the flat voice, the wax, the 6 sesterces, this is the actual machinery. This is how the island eats you, not in one gulp, by adjustment. And there is no bucket chain for it, no vigiles, no wind to back off 2 points at dawn. There is only the pot in the chest, quietly replanning itself, and the shears and the long game and the small hard vow you make standing there in the dark that you will climb faster than the number. Felix takes it worse. You hear it through the wall, the knife grinder's voice with an edge on it. His stones never gave a blade, and his wife's voice underneath, level, steady, talking him down the way you'd walk a mule past a fire. The leatherworker takes it silently. The taps stop for 1 full day, which is his shout. The family above, 7 of them in the half-height room, the cheapest airspace in the building, Take the smallest raise in coin and the largest in weight, and within the month the two eldest boys, 9 and 11, are running for a fish stall before dawn, and you meet them on the stairs in the black morning, small and quick and already learning to skip the step without being told, and you stand aside on the landing to let them pass, and something in your chest does something you don't have a word for. You take on evening work yourself. Fulvius told about the raise. You didn't tell him. Thallus told him. The street tells him everything. Grunts, and the next week the shop begins keeping the shears busy an hour past closing, seconds and sacking, at piece rates, with a lamp burning oil that Fulvius pretends not to count, and Vindex staying without being asked, silent at your shoulder in the small yellow light, correcting your wrist with 2 fingers. Whether this is charity or investment you will never establish, and you finally understand that with men like Fulvius the question has no answer, because the 2 things are not, in his ledger, different columns. And then, because this city's genius is timing, because Rome has always known exactly when its people are about to snap, December comes, and with December, Saturnalia. If you've never heard what Saturnalia is, let me hand it to you the way the city handed it to you. Your first year, when you stood in this same street with your mouth open. For 7 days in the dark of the year, Rome turns itself over like an hourglass. The law courts close, the schools close, the shops close, after the first morning when they do their maddest trade of the year, and the whole 1,000,000-headed city pours into the streets in its holiday best, which for the poor means the same tunic with a clean face above it, and everyone wears the felt cap of the freed slave, the pileus, so that for 1 week you cannot tell citizen from freedman from slave by their heads, which is the entire point. Gambling, banned all year, is legal in the open street. Dice rattle on every counter and every temple step. Masters wait on their slaves at table, some genuinely, most theatrically, all publicly. Presents cross every threshold. Wax candles, little clay figures, nuts, dice, knuckle bones. Salvia gives you a candle and you give her walnuts from the stall by the shrine, and she calls you a Sabine peasant with real tenderness. And for 7 nights the wheeled cart law might as well not exist for all you can hear of it, because the streets roar till the small hours with singing, with cook fires, with the one universal shout of the season, Io Saturnalia, flung between strangers like a ball that no one is allowed to drop. Io Saturnalia. Even the ruined shout it, especially the ruined. Your third Saturnalia, the one after the raise. The shop closes at noon and Fulvius does the thing he does once a year. The thing that made you understand him finally. He sets the courtyard trestle with bread and sausage and honest unwatered wine, and he serves it, himself with his own terrible delicate hands, to Vindex and Thallus, and you and the 2 slave boys who tend the sulphur room, standing behind each of you in turn with the jug like the world's widest-shouldered cupbearer, and the boys laugh themselves helpless because they are boys, and Thallus holds out his cup with the serenity of a man collecting a debt owed him by the whole institution of mastery, and when Fulvius fills yours, he says quietly, under the noise, not looking at you, 46 is a bad number. Shear like you sheared Tuesday, and by summer it's a small one. Then at volume to the table, the toast the whole city is making at that hour in 100,000 rooms. Io Saturnalia, drink. Tomorrow doesn't exist yet. That night you walk the long way home, alone, warm to the fingertips with the master's wine through a city with its mask off. Do this with him, walk it. The vicus first, roaring gold, every papina a furnace of light and song, dice-hitting counters like sleet. Then down, on a whim, toward the Forum, through streets you never take at night because the night streets of Rome are attacks you avoid, but not this week. This week the whole city is out, and the darkness has been colonized by torches, and safety for once is a crowd that never thins. Past the shuttered law courts with revellers on the steps, past the temple of Saturn itself, the god of the week, its doors thrown open, the fat pillars washed in torchlight, the crowd before it 10 deep and singing something older than anyone singing it, past a knot of young aristocrats in party silks and freedmen's caps, drunk as boatmen, playing dice on the base of a golden statue with a leather-aproned smith, and losing to him, roaring at their own ruin, while the statue above them, some armoured ancestor, some consul of consuls, stares down the length of the Forum at 400 years of the dignity being suspended and survives it, as he does every December, and up last the long dark climb of your own stairs. Quiet here, the building's revellers still out, only the family under the roof faintly stirring, only the baby, only the old boards ticking with December cold. 5 flights by feel, skip the step, and at your door you stop, because from the little window at the corridor's end, the one that looks northwest, you can see a slice of the city, and the slice is on fire with celebration. 100 visible windows burning lamp gold at an hour when the law of ordinary weeks would have them black, and the sound coming up off the streets is not carts, is voices, is 1,000,000 people agreeing for 7 nights by ancient contract to pretend the ledger's away. Io Saturnalia. The number is still 46. The step is still loose. The crack is still nothing. But you stand at the little window a long time anyway, cap on your head like a freedman, wine in your blood like a rumour of another life, and you let the city have this, because the city, whatever else it has done, has earned one honest thing from you tonight. Nowhere else on earth do the eaten and the eaters wear the same hat for a week and shout the same word across the same fires. It isn't justice. You know it isn't justice. The courts reopen in 7 days and the rents with them. It's something smaller and stranger, and on the right December night, almost as warming. It's the world's greatest city admitting, once a year, at the top of its voice, what it spends the other 51 weeks denying with every brick and every ledger and every locked strongbox on every hill, that under the cap, there's no difference. There was never any difference. You sleep in your clothes that night, cap and all, and the singing stitches itself into your dreams, and for once, you'd swear it in front of a praetor. The carts don't wake you even once. The year turns. January's Kalends arrives with its new number, and the new number is paid. Tight, but paid. The pot bruised but breathing, and the winter grinds along its groove. The frozen jug, the steaming basins, the chilblains, the shears in the lamplight. In February, on the anniversary week of the fire, the whole street is strange and short-tempered, and no one says why, and half the building rechecks its braziers twice a night, and the vigiles' bells, whenever they sound anywhere, lift 200 heads off 200 pillows in your insula alone, and hold them, listening in the dark, until the tan goes away from us, away from us, away. It always goes away from you that second winter after. You are aware, in a way you were not before, that this is luck, not law. And in March, Vindex's shears pass to your hand, not ceremonially. Nothing in that shop is ceremonial. The old Gaul simply fails to take them back one afternoon, and stands watching you work a client's toga, a real toga, start to finish, and at the end of it, walks to the courtyard wall, sits down in the sun with the slow care of a man handling his own bones, and closes his eyes like a debt discharged. He'll stay on for years yet, brushing and pressing and correcting your wrist with 2 fingers. But the shears are yours now, and the wage that comes with them, and on the next payday Fulvius counts it into your palm, the new number, the cropper's number, and holds the last coin a half-second longer than necessary and says, "Told you it would get small," and that is the entire ceremony, and it is enough. It is more than enough. You have to stand a moment at the tunic peg with your back to the shop until your face agrees to behave. 46 sesterces the quarter, a small number now. You did the thing, you climbed faster. The pot in the chest changes its ambitions that spring. It stops being a wall against disaster and becomes, coin by coin, a door. And then comes the summer the whole world remembers, and you are there, and it costs you nothing, and that is the strangest part of all. The amphitheatre opens in June. 4 years of cranes and scaffolds and travertine dust drifting over the eastern quarters. 4 years of the valley between the hills filling with a building too large for the eye to take in one look, and now the scaffolds are down. The awning masts are up around the crown like a ring of ships' masts grown from stone, and the Emperor Titus declares the inaugural games 100 days, 100 days of spectacle, paid from the imperial purse, open to the city, and the tickets, the little bone tokens with a gate and tier and seat scratched on them, go out through the districts, through the guilds, through the grain dole lists, through every channel Rome has for reaching its own, and one of them reaches the Fullers' Association of your quarter, and Fulvius, holding the shop's allotment in his fist like a man holding coals, distributes them by seniority and mood, and on a bright morning in the second week, one of them is yours. You go before dawn, because 80,000 other people also go before dawn, and the streets flowing east are like nothing you have seen, like every festival stitched together, whole neighbourhoods moving as one body, children on shoulders, vendors working the current with sausages and cushions and cups. Cushions. You'll want a cushion. 4 hours on travertine, believe the man. And then the streets open into the plaza, and the building takes the sky away from you. You have seen it for years. You have never seen it. That is the only way to say it. Up close the arches stack 3 stories and then a 4th solid ring above them, and every arch of the middle tiers holds a statue, and the morning sun comes down the travertine like water down a cliff, and 80 entrances swallow the crowd in 80 steady streams, and your token's letters march you to your gate, upstairs wider than your street, through the cool stone gut of the thing where the crowd. Roar overhead sounds like standing under a waterfall, and out through the vomitorium into light in a bowl of humanity so vast your legs actually stop. 50,000 people. More. The far side of the crowd is a texture, not faces. The arena floor below is pale raked sand, bright as a coin, and over everything, moving, alive, the velarium, the awning, the great sail ring you'd heard about and half doubted. Wedge after wedge of canvas run out on ropes from the mast ring by sailors of the fleet, actual sailors, sent up from Messinum for the season, and you watch them work the lines along the crown of the building, tiny figures hauling in rhythm, and the shade slides across the tiers like the shadow of a god's hand, and 50,000 people sigh at once at the touch of it. And the sigh is a weather of its own. And the wool. Forgive him, but the boy who came down from the hills is a cropper now, and he cannot help it. What he sees, tier upon tier upon tier, blinding in the June light wherever the awning hasn't reached, is white. The senators' band of it down front, the knights above them, the citizens in their ranked thousands above those. Togas, togas beyond counting, the greatest single gathering of cleaned and whitened cloth the world has ever assembled in one bowl, and every square foot of it passed through hands like yours, through basins like yours, through some sweating shop in some reeking street in some quarter of this city, and nobody in the bowl is thinking that except you and every other fuller present, and you find, absurdly, that your eyes are stinging, and you tell yourself it is the brightness. I will not walk you through the whole day. The day was 100 days, and the poets and the chroniclers took its measure so thoroughly that men will still be quoting them 20 centuries on. The processions, the beast hunts with animals no one in your tier can name, the theatrical clouds of saffron water sprayed over the crowd against the heat, cool and gold-smelling, drifting down on 10,000 upturned faces. And yes, in that first summer, the thing the mule driver refused to believe. They flooded it. The arena sealed and filled. Actual water, actual ships, oars flashing, a sea battle staged in the middle of the city on the spot where a tyrant's private lake had been. And that is the point of it. Everyone around you says so. The emperor's fathers drained Nero's pleasure lake and raised on it a pleasure for the million. And whatever else empire is, whatever the sand will drink before the 100 days are out, the crowd around you knows exactly what it is being told. This belongs to you. It doesn't, of course. You will go home tonight to a rented room in a leaning tower, and the Kalends will come with the moon. But you sit in the shade of sailcloth worked by the fleet, in a marble bowl with 50,000 of your neighbours, eating chickpeas from a paper cone, roaring when the tears roar, and for one entire day the arithmetic of your life is suspended as completely as it is at the baths, as it is at Saturnalia. And you begin to understand that this, precisely this, is the bargain the city has been offering all along. The third thing it gives you along with the aqueduct water and the burial club, not justice, never justice, but splendour. Splendour held in common, the grandest things on earth thrown open to the man with the cracked heels, on the same terms as the man in the silk. The rich have gardens, you have Rome. It is not a fair trade. You know to the sesterce how unfair it is. You have paid the difference monthly for 4 years. You take it anyway. Everyone takes it. That is how the city stands. You walk home in the long old evening in a river of tired, sunburned, talking people, through streets where every counter is retelling the sea battle with different ships, and you climb your 5 flights, skip the step, and you stand a moment at the corridor window looking toward the valley where the great bowl now sits, emptied and torchlit, breathing out its heat into the dusk, and then you go into your 8x10 and lie down on your straw in the dark, 60 feet above the street. In the top of your leaning tower, one tenant among a million, and the day settles over you like the awning's shade. One more thing about that summer, small, and I give it to you because it is the kind of thing the chronicles never keep and your body never loses. In the worst week of the heat, the water at the Lion's Mouth fails for a day and a half. Not the aqueduct, a junction box somewhere up the line, a sluice being repaired. The water commissioner's men post a notice that 1/10 of the street can read, and the rest learn by standing in a dry line at dawn. And for a day and a half your street runs on the next fountain over 2 neighbourhoods away, and the line there is 100 deep and edged, and you watch the peace of it being kept minute by minute by the grandmothers, who assess every flare of temper with their terrible level eyes and put it out with a word, and you carry double, your jug and the leather worker's wife's, because she is 8 months along and the stairs are war for her now. £40 and £40, 5 flights and 5 flights twice a day, and your shoulders write the whole affair into their permanent records. On the second evening the lion coughs, spits, rust, and runs cold and clean again, and the street cheers a stone spout, the way it cheered the wind changing on the night of the fire. You drink first, straight from the mouth, the miles-cold gift of the dead engineers, and it tastes the way it always tastes, like lime and distance, and you actually think, standing there with the water running over your wrist, that no emperor at his table drank anything better than this today. And you're right. That's the joke of Rome, the Zeep joke under all the ledgers. Her greatest luxuries were always the common ones, the water, the shade of the awning, the heat of the bath floor, the roar of the bowl, splendour for a quadron, splendour for free, and a dry room with a solid floor priced like pearls. You'd trade every marble arch in the city for a ground floor lease. There isn't a tenant on your staircase who wouldn't, and not one of you would leave. Let me give you one more day before we let the lamp go out. Not a special day. That's the point of it. A day from the deep middle of your third year, when the city has finished becoming yours and you have finished noticing. It begins in the dark, in the last cold hour with the whetstone. Felix married his murmuring woman in October. The whole floor drank to it on the landing, standing up, out of 4 shared cups. And the stone starts later now, and softer, but it starts because trades don't sleep in. You wake before it most days. Your body has become its own bell. You lie 1 minute in the warmth of the blanket doing the inventory, hands stiff. They're always stiff now in the mornings. You flex them under the blanket like a man arguing with gloves. Feet, fine. Back, fine. The forearm, that good new ache. And then up, and the floor's cold takes your soles like a signature on the day's contract. The jug's water is silk cold. You drink, splash your face, rake wet fingers through your hair. Tunic, belt, cord, coins. The room takes 8 steps to cross diagonally, and you know because you've counted the way a man in a small boat knows the boat. Out the door, outward, carefully. Down the corridor past the leather worker's tap, 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 already going, past Felix's door and its smell of bread, because his wife bakes at the cook shop and brings home the broken loaves. Down the stairs, skip the step. It's been 4 years loose now. There was talk once of the whole floor paying a carpenter out of pocket, and the talk died the way talk dies, and the step stays, and it occurs to you sometimes that the step is the truest citizen of this building, neglected, dangerous, relied upon, and known absolutely by everyone. Fountain, line. The grandmother is dead this past winter. A different grandmother has assumed her post and her privileges without election. The lion's mouth in the blue morning, the miles cold water, the drink you still, 3 years in, rank among the finest things your body knows. £40, 5 flights. Your calves stopped complaining about this sometime in your second year. You noticed the silence one day the way you'd notice a missing tooth. Then the shop, and the shop's day, which I could tread out for you hour by hour. The first hall, the ammonia's slap, the treading songs, Thallus's parliament in the doorway, the sulphur room's turn coming around to you and the hour of coughing after. The midday bread eaten standing in the courtyard sun with your back against warm brick and your eyes shut for exactly 40 breaths. The afternoon at the shears sacking first. Then, for the first time this day, live work. A client's cloak, a real garment. Vindex silent at your shoulder, the long stroke, the wrist lock, the blades whispering along the nap and telling your hand everything is even, everything is even, everything is even, and at the end of it, the old Gaul taking the cloak up, turning it in the light, laying it down, and giving you a nod of a single centimetre that lands on you like a laurel crown. But you know the day's shape by now. You could tread it yourself. What I want is the evening. The evening is this. The light going long and gold up the vicus, the shutters clattering home, the wage coin warm in your palm and then onto the cord, Salvia's counter, the stew, the mule driver, the news, grains up. The amphitheatre's opening games are set for summer, 100 days. They're saying the emperor will flood the arena and stage sea battles, actual ships, actual water, and the mule driver doesn't believe it. And you do, because you have seen what this city does when it decides to do a thing. Then the walk home in the blue hour, 12 feet of street, 6 stories of leaning walls, the ribbon of sky going rose to violet overhead, lamps coming alive in windows like the hill's 10,000 fires seen from inside. A neighbour's greeting, your name in a Roman mouth, worn smooth as the old coin, native now. 5 flights, skip the step, and the room, your room, 8 by 10, the bed, the stool, the chest with the pot in it. 63 now. The peg, the shutter, the gladiator scratched in the plaster. Victor Vincus. Victor, may you win. You still don't know if he did. You have decided that he did. You eat the last of the bread on the stool by the window with the shutter half open, watching the light die on the wall opposite, and your hands, doing nothing at last, lie in your lap like tools racked for the night. Cracked, calloused, ammonia white at the creases, one forearm carrying its good ache. And there is a moment chewing, tired in every fibre a body keeps for the purpose, when the whole ledger of this life lies open in front of you at once, and you read it plainly. It says, you rent a room at the top of the building that leans. It says, your ceiling is another family's floor, and your floor is another family's ceiling, and every wall gives you the lives of strangers all night, and everything you own fits in a chest, and none of the ground under any of it is yours, and the city has tried in 3 years to take your money, your sleep, your health, your neighbour, and twice the roof itself from over you. And it says, on the facing page, in the same ink, you're here. It could not shake you off. The greatest city there has ever been. The city of 1 million. The city the whole world's ships sail toward. The city that eats buildings and drinks rivers and buries its poor in dovecotes. Has, somewhere in its measureless accounts, 1 line with your name on it. Quintus Ollius, Fuller, Vicus Sandaliarius, 5th floor. Paid in full. That's not nothing. Some nights it is very nearly everything. The dark comes up the street the way it always comes, from the ground first, pooling between the buildings while the roof tiles hold the last of the rows. The first cart of the night sounds at the far end of the vicus, that long stone thunder, and the building takes the hum into its old bones, and you take yourself to bed. The straw crackles, the blanket knows your shape. Through the wall, tap, 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 then quiet. Above, the shuffle of the family under the roof, the baby, a new baby now. The buildings replace even their smallest sounds. Settling, settled. Below, 4 floors of lives banking their fires, latching their shutters, lying down in their rented dark, layer on layer on layer, 200 people breathing in 1 leaning tower, the whole vertical village of it going under together. You close your eyes. and your day walks itself backward through you, the way days do at the edge of sleep, unspooling without your help. The shears whispering everything is even, the nod worth a crown, the stew's salt, the lion's mouth cold, the whetstone in the dark, the coins on the cord rising and falling on your chest, small and warm, like a second slow heart. The carts roll. Let them roll. They are far away now, or you are. The thunder has gone soft at the edges, gone to tide, gone to weather, the way it goes every night when the body finally signs off the day. You know this sound too well to fear it. It is only Rome, feeding itself in the dark. It is only the city, turning over in its sleep. You're warm enough, fed enough, safe enough, as safe as this city sells, and you've paid, and the door is latched, and the lamp is out, and the brazier is cold, and you checked it. You always check it now, and it is cold. You have water in the jug and coins in the pot and work in the morning. That's more than your father dared hope when the wagon rolled south. That's more than most of this street. That's enough. Tomorrow there will be wool. Tomorrow there will be the line at the Lion, and the 5 flights, and the 3rd step down. Tomorrow the Kalends will come again, at the end of the month, the way the moon comes, and you will be ready for it, because you are always ready for it now. But that's tomorrow, the same as yesterday, the same as the day before, the same as all the days stretching out ahead of you down the years like a street you finally know. Right now there is only the dark of the little room, and the breathing of the building, and the tide of the wheels below, rising and falling, rising and falling. Let it carry you. Let the sounds blur. Let the street go soft. Let the last accounts of the day, the coins, the cracks, the steps, the strangers, close themselves, one by one, ledger after little ledger, and slide off the table of your mind into the dark. Let your hands unclench. They've earned it. Let your feet be still. They've earned it twice. You've earned this rest. All of it. Take it. Centuries will pass. The building you sleep in will fall, or burn, or be pulled down for something taller, and that will fall too, and the street itself will rise. The streets of Rome climb through the centuries on their own rubble, foot by foot, so that the city you know lies buried now beneath the city that came after, and that one beneath the next. The insulae will go, the fountain will go, and the lion's mouth with it. Though the water, this is true, the water still comes. There is an aqueduct feeding Rome today that was feeding it before you were born, and people fill their bottles at street fountains from springs your grandfather's Rome tapped, and complain about the line. The amphitheatre will still be standing, broken, robbed of its seats and its marble, 2,000 years old, and still the largest thing in the neighbourhood, and strangers from lands past the edge of every map you ever heard of will walk around it every day and try to imagine the crowds. And this will not change. In that same city, and in every city its example built, on this very night, millions of people will climb stairs to small rented rooms at the tops of buildings they do not own. They will count what's in their pockets against what's due on the 1st of the month. They will hear their neighbours through the walls and learn their footsteps and bring water to the old woman down the hall. They will notice a crack and decide it's nothing, and lie down and listen to the city grind on outside the window, and be, in spite of every ledger, warm enough, fed enough, safe enough. Some things don't change. The need for a roof doesn't change. The weight of a rent day doesn't change. And the sweetness of this exact moment, the work done, the door latched, the body given at last, wholly its permission, that doesn't change either. Quintus knew it on his straw in the year 79. You know it now. So let it come. Let sleep take you the way it took a tired young fuller in a leaning tower on the Sandal-maker's Street, 19.5 centuries ago, with the ox carts rolling and the whole vertical village breathing around him. Let the world fade. Let the noise quiet. Let your thoughts slow and soften and finally stop. The rent is paid. The lamp is out. The city will keep till morning. Good night.